The story of England is often overlooked, hidden beneath the towering legacies of Great Britain and the United Kingdom, yet before either union could ever take shape, England had to exist first, and it has, in fact, done so since the year 927 AD. The question then arises, how was England created, who claimed the land before it, and how did it become the kingdom we recognize today? When the Roman Empire withdrew from the British Isles, the land that makes up modern England was left vulnerable. Waves of Germanic tribes from across the sea began migrating, settling, carving out their own place in the vacuum. According to early historians, the native Britons found themselves under constant pressure from raids by Picts and Scots. Desperate to resist these threats, they initially welcomed some of the Anglo-Saxons, hoping for protection. Yet these Germanic settlers quickly shifted from allies to conquerors. They pushed back the northern raiders, but then turned against the Britons themselves, establishing authority across the land. By the dawn of the 7th century, the Anglo-Saxons had founded kingdoms that would define the political map of early England: Essex, Kent, Sussex, Mercia, East Anglia, Northumbria, and Wessex. Each of these kingdoms developed their own customs, their own rulers, and their own centers of power. Archaeological findings suggest that Anglo-Saxon society was strongly hierarchical, with kings, nobles, warriors, farmers, and slaves. Religion also played an important role at first. Pagan traditions and gods dominated the cultural landscape, with shrines and rituals dedicated to Woden and Thor. Christianity, however, slowly spread across the region, largely due to missionaries from Rome and from Ireland. By the end of the 7th century, the majority of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms had converted, marking a profound shift in cultural identity and governance. The church became not only a religious center, but also an institution of learning and record-keeping, preserving texts that would otherwise have been lost for centuries. These kingdoms coexisted, sometimes peacefully, sometimes in bitter conflict. Kings often sought to dominate their neighbors, and the concept of a Bretwalda, or overlordship, occasionally emerged, whereby one king held temporary supremacy over the others, yet no single kingdom succeeded in uniting all of England. At this stage, their relative calm was shattered when a new and fearsome enemy arrived. In the year 793, Viking raiders stormed Lindisfarne Monastery. Their brutality shocked the Anglo-Saxons, not only for the violence inflicted, but also for the sacrilege committed in attacking a Christian holy site. This marked the beginning of relentless Viking incursions that would define the next 2 centuries. By 870, East Anglia had fallen to Danish control. Mercia soon followed, and Northumbria was seized in 875. Wessex stood alone as the last great Anglo-Saxon kingdom. When King Aethelflaed of Wessex died, his younger brother Alfred inherited a desperate situation. At first, Alfred sought to buy time, paying tribute to Viking warlords to keep them at bay, but he soon reorganized his defenses. He ordered the construction of fortified towns known as burhs, established a reformed military system, and improved naval defenses. At the Battle of Edington, Alfred led his forces to victory, driving the Vikings back and securing Wessex in what became a legendary turning point. The peace settlement that followed created boundaries between Anglo-Saxon and Viking-controlled lands. The Viking territories came to be known as the Danelaw, characterized by their own laws, customs, and governance systems. King Alfred, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to promote learning and religion in his kingdom. He sponsored translations of important Latin works into Old English-founded schools, and strengthened ties with the church. Alfred is remembered not only as a warrior king, but also as a lawmaker and reformer, setting the stage for a more unified kingdom. When Alfred died, his son Edward the Elder and his daughter, Aethelflaed, Lady of the Mercians, carried on his mission together. They waged campaigns to reclaim territory from the Danes. By 917, they had captured East Anglia and pushed northward. Aethelflaed, in particular, proved a formidable ruler, expanding Mercia's influence and even securing the loyalty of York before her death, although her daughter Alfwin briefly inherited her position. Political maneuvering led to Mercia's absorption into Edward's rule, creating a more unified Anglo-Saxon state. By 924, Edward had expanded his authority so that many neighboring rulers in Wales and beyond acknowledged his overlordship. His son Aethelstan inherited a stronger, more centralized kingdom. Aethelstan is often considered the first true king of England. He consolidated Northumbria after the death of its Viking ruler Sitric and styled himself Rex Anglorum, King of the English. He strengthened ties with continental Europe, marrying sisters to rulers in France and the German states, thereby raising the prestige of the English crown in 937, Aethelstan faced his greatest test when a coalition of northern kings and Viking rulers united against him at the Battle of Brunanburh. The clash was immense and bloody, but the English army triumphed, securing the kingdom's independence and unity. This victory is often celebrated as the birth of English national consciousness, though Scotland and Strathclyde remained independent for all his achievements. Aethelstan's death in 9 reopened the door to Viking ambitions. Olaf Guthfrithson of Dublin invaded, seizing York and parts of Mercia. Aethelstan's successor, Edmund, eventually reclaimed these territories, reuniting England and even extending influence into Strathclyde, though he later ceded some of this land to Scotland as part of a diplomatic settlement. Edmund's reign was cut short by his assassination. In 946, his brother, Edred, succeeded him, facing renewed Viking pressure, particularly from Eric Bloodaxe, the notorious Norwegian king. After years of conflict, Edred finally secured Northumbria permanently under English control. This marked a decisive step in the consolidation of England, although the process of stabilizing the realm was still ongoing. The later 10th century saw a mixture of turbulence and reform. Under Edgar the Peaceful, who reigned from 959 to 975, the kingdom reached a period of relative calm. Edgar was crowned with elaborate ritual emphasizing the sacred nature of kingship, an event that influenced English coronation ceremonies for centuries to come. His reign emphasized law, order, and administration. Edgar confirmed local governance through shires and hundreds, standardized coinage, and promoted monastic reform. His support for the church encouraged cultural renewal and strengthened ties between crown and clergy. Importantly, Edgar's willingness to incorporate elements of Danelaw customs helped integrate the Danish population into the kingdom, avoiding rebellion and promoting unity. The kingdom under Edgar was no longer merely a collection of conquered lands, but a structured state with recognized laws, systems of taxation, and increasingly centralized authority. Yet even as Edgar laid these foundations, the kingdom's security remained fragile. Subsequent rulers would struggle against renewed Viking invasions, culminating in the later conquest of England by Danish kings, and eventually the Norman invasion of 1066. Nevertheless, the period from Alfred to Edgar established the essential framework of England. The creation of England was therefore not a sudden event, but a long-drawn process, beginning with the Anglo-Saxon migration, the establishment of early kingdoms, their survival against Viking invasions, and the eventual consolidation of power under strong rulers. Over centuries of struggle, compromise, reform, and war, England emerged as a unified kingdom with a shared identity. Its existence the result of both conflict and cooperation forged in the crucible of medieval Europe. The endurance of its people, the resilience of its rulers, and the ability to adapt foreign influences into its own institutions ensured that England survived as more than just a patchwork of territories. By the late 10th century, it stood as a nation in its own right, with borders, governance, and a sense of unity that would shape its future for centuries to come.